founder of Apex GMAT, and I currently serve as the head of curriculum development and instructor training. So I'm responsible for much of the curriculum development here, including our online platform and our other lessons and resources that we offer to our clients, as well as I oversee much of the content that we produce. Additionally, I'm responsible for training all of the instructors that work with us, and that involves a fairly intensive training process to take folks who already come to us with a 770 plus GMAT score or a 339 plus GRE score, and take them from great performers and intuitive instructors to great performers, intuitive instructors that also become master of their craft when it comes to delivering customized instruction and coaching that really speaks to individual learners, which is really the heart of what we do here. The GMAT is a psychometric exam, which, just as it sounds like, is there to measure one's cognitive ability. At a deeper level, the GMAT's a test of decisions and operating efficiently under pressure, both the pressure of being in an exam and time pressure. So while ostensibly the subject matter is quantitative information and the ability to read and understand English, these are really baseline subjects that they expect everyone to have been exposed to in their secondary school and certainly undergraduate careers. So what the test actually is going after is your fluency and flexibility and your critical thinking skills and creative problem solving skills, which are necessary to perform well under that time constraint. Each MBA program has its own scoring requirements, and there are a wide variety of programs, some of which accept scores down into the 500s, even 450 and above. For most of the people watching this, they're likely interested in the known sort of top tier schools, the Harvards and Stanfords and Whartons, LBSs and INSEADs of the world. And there, a good rule of thumb is you're looking for a 700 or better. While not everyone needs that to gain acceptance, typically in order to be competitive, you want to be somewhere around the average score to above the average score. Very few. Very, very few. To be sure, it's single or very low double digits. And it's not really necessary. Scoring an 800 does more for one's self-esteem than it does for your prospects. MBA programs are looking for the whole package, and the GMAT score is an essential part of that because it demonstrates your ability to deal with the curriculum that they're going to be presenting to you. Keep in mind the fact that when you're accepted to an MBA program, they expect you to graduate already. And so they want to make sure that you have the requisite skills to handle the rigor of the program. What's more, achieving a perfect score is at least somewhat reflective of the mix of problems one gets on that day. But also can be a little bit overkill with respect to the preparation one might want to undergo. Certainly it happens. Certainly we've had instructors here score 800, but that shouldn't be considered special. And most people who take an 800 don't get it again and again and again. 780, 800, 790. So more generally, to break down the scoring on the GMAT, about 1% of GMAT test takers score 760 or above. And about 20% of those people are admitted to any given top program. So if you look at the percentage of people who apply to Harvard as an example versus the percentage that with a 760 or better, about 20% of those actually obtained admission. So the GMAT score is vital, and that's a much higher acceptance rate than lower GMAT scores, but it's not the only thing. And if you bring GMAT aptitude with nothing else, without achievements, a strong resume, great interpersonal skills, you're not going to get very far. That's a great question. And the answer is yes. And in fact, it's easier, I think, than what's advertised out there. If you go to message boards and videos and you look at the percentile breakdowns, to obtain a 700, it's roughly the top 10% of test takers. But one needs to consider there are a few biases in there, not least of which is that many people take the exam multiple times, and so have registered several lower scores before they get the 700. Additionally, and probably more importantly, most people do not prepare effectively for the exam. And so many people who might otherwise get a 700 do not achieve that score because they haven't prepared in the right way. And so if you think about it through that lens, most people are capable of getting a 700. And it's not really the top 10% of people that get a 700 plus score, but the top 10% of performances. And if you've ever done anything, you know, whether it's athletics, GMAT, dating, doesn't matter. We all have our good days and bad days. And so those 700s are everyone's good days. What this means is really much more than 10% of the people who engage the GMAT achieve that score. One other caveat is that aside from many folks not preparing effectively for the GMAT and never getting the score after many attempts, there are a non-insignificant portion of people who take the exam completely unprepared and give up on it. And so many of the very low scores in the, say, 300s and 400s are scores for people who really had no business sitting down at the exam because they didn't review even the basics of the exam. That's not to fault anyone, but what that means is that you're further skewing those 700 plus performances and making them rarer than they really are. So to summarize, with the right type of preparation and an understanding that not everyone hits it the first time, many, if not just about everyone who wants a 700 can get it. Countries don't do well on exams. People do well on exams. So to some extent, what we're really looking at is maybe there are not clusters of people coming from particular areas or backgrounds that perform well. I think a more valuable way to look at this is to say what elements of education and what strategies lead to what type of scores. And if I want to use an analogy here, if we have two schools and one school highly stresses physical education and everyone has to play football every day for 3 hours after school, and the other school allows students to decide whether they want to play football some days, participate in a play, learn to paint, study an AP course or an extra, difficult course. What you're going to have is one school where there are better football players because both from a time investment perspective, but also a cultural perspective, everyone plays football, so everyone's getting better and playing against everyone else. Whereas in the school with more options, you're going to have fewer football stars, but more, say, painting stars and theater stars and math stars. So a lot of this comes down to what one has practiced. And to be sure, there are different strategies for practicing those skills that lead to great test scores, but also those practices lead to different types of scores. And so you may get a group of people from a particular school that naturally score with an average in the high 600s, and another group that scores naturally with an average in the lower 600s. But the flexibility of those to improve past that upper 600s level might be diminished, whereas the potential for improvement on the lower 600 level from the other school may in fact be much greater. So I don't think it's valuable to think about these as clusters, but I thought it was important to explain why this clustering can take place. And in any data set, you're going to see patterns that might not actually be patterns, or patterns not because they're patterns in and of themselves, but because of other underlying reasons. So no one should feel that they come from a place where they're super prepared or super unprepared. If you come to this process with humility and a thirst for learning, you're going to do well, I guarantee. I hesitate to say that there's any one right way. In fact, what we do here at Apex is customized one-on-one preparation, and no two clients are the same. So the preparation plans for two people who come to us, say with a 650, seeking a 700 plus, can be vastly different. One person might be great on the fundamentals, but weak on, say, executive function and problem approach skills, just to name two factors. The other person might have the opposite, weak fundamentals, but a really great instinct for answering questions. These have different preparation timelines and very different tasks. I think what is helpful is to talk about the ways of preparing that are not useful, that tend to be inefficient or don't lead to great scores. And that usually consists of, okay, I'm gonna study really hard and do a bunch of problems every day. And then I'm gonna review them. And the ones I got right, great, I know that, I can move on. The ones I got wrong, oh, what was it in there? Oh, I forgot that formula. I should remember that next time. I forgot it, or I need to review more and move on. That's extraordinarily low yield prep. One is not focusing on what they're doing right. One is not paying proper attention to what they're doing wrong, because many times it's not a question of memory or insight after the fact. It's not that you didn't know it, it's that you didn't realize you needed it. That is, that particular formula or insight. And so many people prepare for this as an academic exam where it's about hours and material. And as I mentioned before, the GMAT rewards creativity and critical thinking, which are skills that are typically not trained in academia. And so one really needs to focus on curating their thought process to make it more efficient and more insightful, and ensure that they understand not just what they need to know, but how it works. One further piece to this is that there are behavioral and emotional components in the GMAT, or any what they call high stakes test. And so many clients that we work with suffer from anxiety, either general, test related, math related, very common, stamina issues, calibration issues with time allocation. There's a whole host of them. And the discipline to change those behaviors and one's emotional responses to the situation of being tested is absolutely vital to success, especially in both of these, the critical and creative thinking and the behavioral emotional aspects are essential once you push past the mid 600s. Up to the mid 600s, you can just kind of get by with remembering what high school was like and refreshing it and studying it. What's so insidious is that many people plateau there. and they can't move past it because the skills they've been reinforcing go contrary to the skills that are tested at the next level. I think there's one that encapsulates it all, which is lack of self-knowledge and an inability to be mindful to one's thought process. Mindfulness, for all of its, la-di-da connotations, is essential to solving problems. Understanding what one knows, what one doesn't know, and most importantly, what one doesn't know that they don't know, is vital. And you can think of the GMAT as a bunch of riddles. It's math problems and verbal problems. It's riddles that happen to use math, arguments, and passages because everyone's familiar with them. And so the main resistance point, and this happens to everybody, even instructors, is you get to a point where you can't see past your own nose. You plateau, you can't get past it because you're not seeing what you don't see. And so this is where a guide comes in, and a guide could be from a book that's a year old or 100 or 1,000 years old. It certainly can be from resources, videos, what have you. But the best guides in any practice are the ones that can really focus in on what you're missing and not seeing. And that coaching is invaluable for breaking past those barriers. While there is a lot of hard work, generally there's this inflection point where everything comes together for our clients and anyone preparing anything, whether again it's a sport or something else, where all of a sudden, once there's an insight that's internalized and you notice yourself, say, making the error, it's the cognizance of, oh wait, I could make an error here, that then really rectifies not the error, but gets in front of the error in a whole bunch of different cases throughout the exam. So the greatest resistance point to top performance is mindfulness, wherever that happens to be, whether it's knowledge-based, whether it's behavioral-based, whether it's psychologically or emotionally based, and getting help is not a shameful thing. So I'd like to add one other thing. Many of our clients, some of our clients, don't share their successes, or rather, many of our clients don't share with others the fact that they sought help. Whether they're, say, in a top consulting firm or a top finance firm, there's this idea that one should be able to do it on their own, do it without assistance. And that's ego and it's folly. Just about everyone needs help for top performance, and especially those who have performed well academically. 4.0 throughout high school and college. This test can be especially difficult because this is the first time one's encountered a challenge that they haven't been able to sort of power through. And there's this sense, and you can see it online all over the place, that one should be able to do it on their own. And it's much harder to ask for help if you've never had to ask for help before. What's great about it, though, is once you break through that barrier, speaking of mindfulness, is that generally if you're coming in with a really strong set of intellectual skills and the discipline to perform so well academically, once you see those things that are holding you back, it really sets you on a rapid path for success. And that success on the exam, but also many of these tools can be applied to business school, to your profession. And so these are really thinking skills, not GMAT skills, that are vital to the success here. Absolutely. So where to begin? There's so much, and I'm so excited about it. So Apex was founded out of the realization that there really isn't great one-on-one tutoring available for top performers. And there are a lot of great tutors out there, a lot of great firms, but largely once you get to a certain scale, to a certain size, it becomes very cookie cutter. And as I mentioned before, getting someone to a 650 can be rather cookie cutter. Once you're pushing to elite performance, the individual really has to come to the fore. And Apex was founded with this mission in mind. We began as an exclusively GMAT firm, and now we work on the executive assessment as well as the GRE and a few other more specialized exams, but our core demographic hasn't changed. It's early to mid-career, sometimes late career professionals seeking an MBA or a related degree like a Master's of Finance or a Master's of Accounting. And all of our instructors have scored at least a 770 on the GMAT, equating to the top half of the top 1% of performers. And similarly on other respective exams, without running through all the numbers. Much more importantly, each is a gifted teacher in their own right. And they have strong interpersonal skills and what we call cognitive empathy, which is the ability to look inside our clients' heads and understand how they think, how they learn best, how they approach problems and process information. And we custom tailor our instruction to those features, not just intellectual, but behavioral, psychological, that lead to great performance. Moreover, we endeavor to deliver not just heuristics or tricks, but a change in how people look at quantitative and linguistic information. And we aim to deliver a toolkit that is going to be beneficial, not just on the exams, but in an MBA program or another graduate program, in the work world beyond, and really in any situation where one is learning. Because ultimately, even with resources coming in, all learning is self-learning. And so we prepare our clients to act on their own, because we always can't be there with them, and certainly not on the exam. So this is the core of who we are and what we do. And we have a really great team of highly intuitive instructors who have been doing this a long time and do this as their primary vocation. And that's another important aspect. Many instructors just moonlight while they're doing something else. They often don't see the quantity and depth of clients, including, say, clients who are differently abled learners that we do. But also, most hiring within this industry tends to rely heavily on score rather than teaching ability. And most tutors, not here, teach in a very sort of top-down prescriptive way. Here's how I do it, so do it this way. Or here's how it should be done, or this is the easiest way to teach it to a group of 12 of you, so just follow these steps. And these things break down because different people, even at the instructor level, all of our instructors here solve the same problem differently. So the important thing is being able to provide options and help someone iterate towards the working in a way that aligns with how their brain works, how they construe information. And so that's what we do. I'd say it's necessary, but not sufficient. I don't think it's healthy to quantify importance. It's something one needs to do. It's something that's going to get looked at, but it's not the only thing that's going to get looked at. And if you look deeply into the statistics of incoming classes at top MBA programs, there is an extraordinarily wide variety of scores that get in. Do bear in mind that some of those lower scores tend to be attached to someone having done something extraordinary, or frankly, having an extraordinary family member who has donated a library. Those things do happen, but I'd say the importance is not in the score, it's in the process. The preparation and generally your application preparation is in itself a transformational experience. It's not just the MBA that's transformational. The self-discovery, the addition of skills and addressing of gaps, that is transformational. And the best programs want to see you as a constantly growing, learning, dynamic individual. And to the extent that many people struggle with the GMAT, that's a great way to demonstrate that.